Welcome to episode 10 of Founders and Funders. This week I have Alina, director of Coolibah Downs Private Estate, one of the premier wedding destinations on the Gold Coast hinterland. And before we get deep into the business, let's talk a little bit about you and your earlier life influences. Alina, welcome to the show.
Hi, Ray. Thank you so much for having me on your Founders and Funders podcast. I'm really excited today to share in this episode a little bit about how we got to where we are. We are a wedding venue in the Gold Coast hinterland. I'm really excited to share a little bit more about, my story and how we got to where we are.
Excellent. So where did you grow up? And tell us a little bit more about the earlier years.
Yeah, so I was born in New Zealand, but grew up in Brisbane and spent most of my 1 to 10-year-old life there. And then growing up, we were always just surrounded by small businesses, and my parents also ran their own business. And coming from an immigrant background, it was always starting from base zero and building something. So I was always kind of in that environment growing up. And sort of when I was 13, 14 years old, we moved to the Gold Coast. And that's when our wedding venue came about. Yeah. And then eventually after I finished high school, I moved to Melbourne straight away. I studied uni there and ended up working in my corporate career there for quite a few years. And really only this year did I move back to Gold Coast.
Oh, wow. Tell us a little bit more about the reason you guys moved to the Gold Coast. What drew you there, and how is the Gold Coast associated with wedding venues?
The Gold Coast it's a really popular location for weddings in general, just because it's close to the beach. The weather all year round is pretty good. A little bit humid, I would say, though. But my parents really just liked the environment there. And when they bought a property in the Gold Coast initially, and Coolibah Downs was actually our neighbor at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we had just seen this property come about sort of throughout a year or two, and then eventually the owner was selling. So that's sort of how it came into my family's ownership. And then because my parents didn't come from any kind of venue or any kind of background, they were more involved in the health industry before. My mom just decided that she wanted to run this venue from nothing, really. And with no experience, she didn't really understand the market as well. And at the time, the reason why the owner was selling was because the business was really struggling and it wasn't earning, it was in the red, essentially. And so that's how it came about. And when I was maybe 13 and 14, I was looking into either I can, get a job at Macca's.
Yeah.
Or I can be amongst the trees. And, I thought the events were so cool because everything was just really pretty all the time.
Yeah.
And so I was really excited to be involved at the time. So that's sort of how it all came about. They were essentially just our neighbors, and it was a really good timing for both parties, I think.
Yeah. What type of experience did you gain helping in the family business? What were your responsibilities, and how much time did you commit to it?
Well, I think because I was 13 and 14 and I was looking for a part-time job, and I thought that, I essentially pitched myself to my parents. I was like, I'm going to come in, I'm going to do big things. Thought they would give me, a really cool position or something.
Yeah.
And my mom very quickly was like, cool, you can come in and you can start as the dishy. So that was really humbling. I was washing the plates every night, for 100, 150 people banquets all the time.
By hand, not loading the dishwasher, actually washing the dishes by hand.
So there was both, because you have to wash by hand and then you have to put it through the dishwasher to get it to a certain temperature for hygiene reasons, obviously.
Right.
So it was the high pressure hose sink, and then you have to put it into the dish, load it. Taught me a lot about time management, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And really showed me what the events were truly about and how, I guess, it functioned on the back end. It wasn't just all, glitter and nice things and bows and everything. So yeah, that was really humbling. And then after I got really good at that, I moved into the bar and I became sort of a glassy. I was picking up all the glassware because I was too young to serve alcohol at the time as well. And then eventually I, became the bartender for a while. And once I got really good at sort of managing the bar, at one point I became the resident wedding DJ.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was like a service we were offering at the time in-house. So yeah, I became a wedding DJ for a while, and I thought it would be a cool job, but I very quickly also realized this was definitely not the career pathway I'd wanted in the future.
Wedding DJ.
Yeah, no, I respect all the wedding DJs out there, but it is a really tough gig, and it's really high pressure actually. And people always come up to you and tell you like what song request they want. It was humbly experience. That was my experience at Coolibah, and I just always saw it as a cool summer job, a cool weekend job, and it was, I guess, never really something I would think I would be doing in the future.
Mm.
Yeah, so that was sort of my experience at Coolibah. But yeah, we were always kind of in that sort of small business arena where I just would fill in random positions if someone was sick or whatnot.
How did you negotiate your wage? Like, what was your compensation for working on the family business?
Well, in the very beginning stages, when it wasn't Coolibah, it was I was working at my dad's clinic at the time at reception. I think I was very young though, but I was like $2 an hour. It's negotiated for $2 an hour. Yeah, that was. I felt like that was good at the time. It was good tuck shop money.
Yeah.
But eventually, when I started working at Coolibah, it was a bit awkward. I would sit down, and then I would try to ask for a raise.
Yeah.
And then my mom would also show me, okay, well, this is the base rate for this position. In order to get a raise, what do you think you need to do? What are you going to bring to the table to do that? So I think I very quickly understood how to negotiate as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really interesting because the focus was what value will you add in order for you to be able to get the raise or get what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So yeah, eventually I would come up with, like, for example, at the bar, when I was working at the bar, I was like, I really think we need to improve on our cocktail offerings. We need to offer more upsells in order to be able to bring in more at the end of the day for the bar. So bring in ideas sort of like that. And yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah. Almost like like a little small business inside a business. Like you came up with new opportunities and then you would be able to justify like an increase that you would get.
Yeah. Because I think I always had that creative side to me, but I just didn't realize you could apply the creativity into a business, because I always thought creativity was maybe through art or through music or something like that.
Yeah, me too.
So I think that was, the first taste of, wow, I can actually put my creativity into something else as well.
And what drove you to leave and move to Melbourne? There's many universities in Queensland. I used to live on the Gold Coast, and it's great weather, and Melbourne has more variety in weather.
Yeah.
So what were your reasons for leaving the good life in the beautiful weather and moving to Melbourne?
Yeah, well, I think because I had grown up in the Queensland, Brisbane and Gold Coast environment, I always just knew that because I saw the way my parents started their businesses and, over the years developed different kinds of methods and whatnot, I realized that I was also searching for something like that. And I knew that I wanted that flexibility. I never wanted to work for someone, but I knew I needed to have more experience before, I guess, venturing out. And I just wanted to be in an environment where I could fully do something completely new that was, I guess, away from the family, but also be an environment where I have to make new friends. I have to build a new circle. I have to start from base zero, and get that experience. Yeah. And also Melbourne at the time, I just thought it was the coolest city ever. I thought
it is. It's a very cool city.
I still do think
it still is.
Yeah, it's still my favorite city in Australia. But I love the music scene. I love the food.
The coffee is good. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Coffee was amazing. Yeah.
I think that resonates with me. My parents migrated to Canada. My sister migrated to America, and we all have had this experience of starting on your own and knowing you can make it. And I moved to Australia when I was way back, 24. And
Wow.
I lived for 3 years and then I moved to Sweden. And I think that resilience and knowing that you can start from zero and make your own friends, understand a new ecosystem and
Yeah.
navigate it yourself and build it from scratch is a really great feeling. Like I'd recommend it to anyone to
Yeah.
absolutely relocate once in their life to start again.
Yeah. I think you get to that point in your life where it's weird. If you're always surrounded by people you're looking to be in a place where you feel the loneliness, because I think sometimes loneliness is really important. I think you really figure out a lot about yourself and what's important to you and where you want to go.
And being able to be comfortable alone with yourself.
Yes.
So you moved to Melbourne, you studied, which university did you study?
Yeah, so as soon as I moved to Melbourne, I had already gotten into Monash University. So I did a double degree. I did a Bachelor of Law and also Bachelor of Commerce together.
Very ambitious. It's hard enough to do one. I just did one.
Yeah. Well, actually, initially I was just thinking of doing a commerce degree, and my sister actually had studied law at uni. My older sister had studied law at uni in Queensland, and I didn't really think I wanted to do law at all, but I had a bit of a conversation with her, and she asked me, "What are you looking to do? What do you want in your life?" And I just told her, like, I want to be my own boss one day. Don't know what in, but I don't want to, be working for someone at the end of the day. And she mentioned this really good point, and she just said, look, it's really good to understand the rules that govern society. In a law degree, you go through a lot of that. It could be beneficial to add on to your commerce degree. And I spoke to a couple of teachers and peers at the time, and they all felt like, it was a good direction to go into. So I think that's how I landed in doing the double degree at the end of the day.
That's really good advice. I mean, most of my life is spent reading contracts, whether it's for your business or for yourself. When you're signing up for a service, it's important to understand the rules of society, the rules of the area. So such good advice. And what led you to a career in mergers and acquisitions?
So I sort of in the last 2 years of uni, that's definitely when you start thinking about jobs. What are we going to do? So I kind of did a couple of internships at a few law firms in the beginning, and I kind of quickly realized I don't want to be a lawyer at all. I love studying law, but I didn't want to be a lawyer. So I kind of applied for one of the big fours. I applied for a few actually, and I had landed a summer vacational internship in one. So I did that just to see what it was all about, and then realized that I was kind of drawn to that environment. So I was really lucky enough to be offered a grad role. And then, that's sort of what I chose to do once I finished uni. I just went straight into the grad role, and I actually wasn't in M&A from the get-go. I was actually in risk assurance. And then there we go. I was actually in risk assurance in the very beginning. And then eventually M&A was something that I really wanted to get into. Eventually I moved there into that team, and I guess that's how it all started.
And what was your experience like? What is a day in the life of someone who works in M&A, and what are some of the lessons you learned during your time?
Yeah, so our job essentially was to bring in deals for the company, for our clients, sorry. And, sometimes when, I guess, bigger or smaller companies, either if they're looking to increase their services, rather than starting from nothing, they look into either buying out or merging with a smaller business that's already been focusing on that particular service, especially if there is a deadline in place. So that was our job. It was to look for suitable clients or suitable investment opportunities for our clients to buy out or merge together with. So my job involved a lot of research, involved a lot of looking at the figures, understanding where the value is. Essentially, I was just looking for value. I was looking for, can we create more value, and is there value in the current product or current iteration of wherever that business is at.
Nice. And what were the things that you didn't enjoy that drove you to leave and look for something else to do?
I think it was being in M&A was it was really, really exhilarating at some points, because when you finally find the right investment opportunity for your client, it gets to a point where you need to negotiate, okay, what is the value as to what we're going to buy for? And is that other client, is the company happy with us doing this? So in that sort of the end phase of a deal, it becomes all hands on deck. It's exhilarating. It feels like anything could happen any moment. And so I really enjoyed that section of it. But I think at the same time, when it came to the management side of things, I was also like, oh, it would be so much better if I could create my own team, if I could create my own, like, the people around me that I need. And so I think that's what I was missing a little bit, because I wasn't in that. I didn't get to create as much, even though I got to like do a lot of research. I got to find a lot of investment opportunities. I got to like negotiate all these kind of things. I kind of just knew it wasn't the end. It wasn't it for me.
So what were your options after deciding to leave? What were you considering as your next step?
Well, I was either looking to move to a different company at the time, or I was looking to venture out. But again, because at that point I had already started running Coolibah part-time. So I was, had my full-time job in corporate Korea, and I already had Coolibah at the same time. And I was kind of like, either do I choose to go back to Coolibah, or do I go in a complete different direction? And that would, for me to be able to go to another company, to start again, to build those connections, that would involve like 200% of my time. I don't think I could be running a separate project at the same time, especially because the other it's my own business. Everyone relies on me too. So yeah, I kind of looked at it that way. Either I continue to play the corporate game, start again, and not start again, but start building my connections within the new company again, with a new team, which could be really, really fun and exciting as well, or put my 200% effort into getting my own business to where it needs to be at a quicker rate.
And you chose to go to Coolibah, return back to the family business?
Yes. It became like it. I just asked myself at the end of the day, what would I regret more if I didn't do it? Coolibah became the easy choice for me after I thought about it like that.
Yeah. What was it like returning back to the family business with all this corporate experience? What was your new perspective returning? What were your reactions coming back to the business? What was it like?
Whoa. It was honestly, it was really different. First of all,
because you were a DJ when you left.
Yeah, I know. I was a wedding DJ when I left.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all of it I think first of all, the environment changed. So I went from Melbourne CBD city life to Gold Coast hinterlands, trees, sometimes the Wi-Fi cuts out kind of environment.
Yeah.
So the environment was different, but the biggest thing was now I had a full team that they're not used to me being back full time. They're used to just seeing me on a screen a lot of times, and I fly back and forth for a couple of days here and there. So this whole team now relied on me, and I felt like, there was an expectation of like, okay, where are you going to take us? Where are we going? So I think there was just, in a way, there was a bit more burden on my shoulders, because I also didn't want to disappoint anyone as well. So I think that was a really different thing, because everyone relied on me and my choices, and I couldn't, there was no one else that I could, like, I guess not blame anything on, but like, it was just, I was the last person they would come to for a yes and no, and I wasn't used to being in that position.
How is the business structured? Because you left as the DJ. So who else was in the business at the time when you're returning back? What was your role, or how did the other team members perceive you?
I think because they always saw me, I would always come back on uni holidays and, jump into the bar or something here and there. So they all knew me. Some of them actually watched me grow up, which was really like a weird dynamic as well. Luckily, because I was running it part-time already, my mom did an amazing job, but the way that she ran the business, it was, she had to be on site there in order for the business to run. And the reason why I came back was, during COVID, my dad was quite sick and he needed a full-time carer. unfortunately, he was diagnosed with like stage 4 cancer. And so my mum needed to take a complete backseat. So either at the time, it was we sell the business or it was just, no, that was the only option at the time. And so I came back during COVID as well because my dad was sick. And that's why I could run the business part-time at the time. So yeah, my way that I wanted to run the business was I needed someone to do the daily operations. So we had an operations manager who was there for the day-to-day. And that way I could have the flexibility to fly back and forth. So we kind of started like that. So I had an operations, that way I don't have to physically be here all the time. And then I guess it's just, looking into the different departments. For Coolibah, for a wedding venue, generally you need a catering, like a kitchen department. You need, a bar staff department. You need a cleaning department. You need a setup department, people who set up the weddings, make everything look pretty.
Mhm.
You need like a groundskeeping team as well to make sure grounds look lovely, and you never know what's going to happen with the weather the next day. So, and obviously you need sales, who are the people who are going to make sure we've got cash flow and whatnot, and also on the day coordination as well. So kind of 7 departments was sort of what we needed to function. But yeah, I kind of started from there of like, okay, what do we need? What are the must-haves? And then eventually I started to look into, okay, what are the variable costs in each department?
Mm.
Because I think when my mum ran the business, she didn't look at, I guess, budgeting per department. I think her concept was more, let's just look at the net income. And then, it was like a lot, the accounts and everything it was a lot less clean, I guess.
Less corporate
Yeah,
for sure.
less
Yeah.
corporate. It was kind of all jumbled into one, and then it's like, as long as net profit is fine, then it's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, like, that's just not what I learned in my corporate background. And it was always identify the variable costs first, and then identify what can be controlled.
Mhm.
So for Coolibah, the 2 variable costs were, number 1, the gardens, because again, you're battling with the elements. And then number 2 was my kitchen. Unfortunately, I don't come from a food and beverage background, and I'm not a chef. And I very quickly learned that unless you come from you're a chef or you've been in that food and beverage environment for years, it's really, really hard to manage food costs and to manage budgets in that sense, and also control quality.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing that I realized that could be cut. There's a better way to do it. And I contacted all the catering companies in Gold Coast, went and tried all of their food personally as well, and eventually landed with our amazing caterer now, who, literally makes everything look so beautiful. Everything tastes so much better. I'm happier. Our clients are happier. And, we know that we don't need to worry about the turnaround rate for the staff, because for kitchens, the turnaround rate for wait staff is just every single day, every 24 hours, 48 hours, there's someone switching and you have to hire. So, took that completely off my plate, which really, really helped with budget control and everything like that.
Well, if you ever are looking for some additional help in food and beverage, one of my good friends is executive chef at 3 restaurants on the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
So I'll connect you guys if you ever need it.
Yeah. Which restaurant?
Mr. in Nobby's, and then there's 2 others. Have you been to Mr. in Nobby's?
Yes, I have been there before.
It's his menu. Yeah. He's Asian Australian. We play tennis together, and I'm actually going to see him in a couple of weeks. I'll probably also see you in a couple of weeks.
Yes, we'll make it happen.
Yeah, so he tells me about this challenge of, it sounds nice to be executive chef, but you have tons of casual workers who you're reliant on, who may let you down, and then you have to be there to step in.
Exactly.
And now you found someone to lead your team, and that's incredible, because that's not something you would want to have on your plate.
Yeah, because for what I considered really was, in order to make our services better as well, what do we need? And I felt like the focus needed to be on making sure the wedding planning was exactly what the client wanted. Making sure, I guess, we have more accommodation, and making sure on the day that it's running beautifully. And so I think for my team to focus on that, we just couldn't have the distraction of, oh my gosh, Stephanie can't come in for her wait shift today. What are you going to do?
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And so with all these changes, sounds like it would be important to let the public know that it's a whole different offering. How did you upgrade the perception of the product and service offering? Like how did you rebrand the business?
Yeah, so I think the first thing I did when coming in, I really wanted to rebrand everything overnight.
Okay.
But very quickly, I realized as well, with it, it's not like I'm starting a business from nothing. And when I'm starting from nothing, I can create my own branding exactly the way I want it. But this was a functioning business that already had weddings coming in. And generally for weddings, people book 2 years in advance.
Mhm.
So luckily, I listened to my team in that sense where they were like, Alina, if you change everything overnight, the people who are getting married in 2 years' time, they're gonna come back and complain, or they're not gonna recognize what this is anymore.
Yeah,
So I had to formulate a 3-year plan of like, okay, we need to rebrand this.
gradually.
Yeah, stage by stage. So year one, I focused on just more of the digital side of the rebrand, which was all the logos changing, social media presence, all that kind of stuff. We worked really hard on making sure all that was up to scratch first. And then year two was, okay, let's now change our product, making like before, I think our price range for our weddings was in that mid-low region. And because of that, it meant that in order for us to have a good amount of cash flow for the business, we needed to run at least like 100 or 120 weddings a year in order to be in that good range. So I kind of evaluated, what's going to be the long-term gains and what are going to be short-term gains. But I realized in order for us to offer that premium service, we needed to up our price range, and
Mhm.
therefore we can, give more to each of our clients. And I think most people who come to us are looking for a specific kind of vision, and they don't want the, you know, ceremony and then just reception and then they go home. They want something different. They want to, I don't know, whether it's incorporate their culture or they want to
Mm.
whole family stay for 2 nights. So they want to have that whole venue to themselves kind of experience. So yeah, then it was just about, we changed our offerings, we changed what we included. We included a lot more things, but then my price range went a lot higher. Well, not a lot, but it went into that mid-high range of price range. And initially that was really scary because, everyone knows us at a certain price range, but if you all of a sudden increase your prices, you do get a lot of kickback. But
Mhm.
in the long term, it's actually worked out really well for us because
Yeah.
now I don't need to hold 120 weddings a year in order to
Mhm.
be in a good place.
Yeah.
We can focus on like 70 weddings a year and we're doing even better.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was second year, the main changing our products, making sure, I had the right kind of team around me as well, in order to achieve that. And I really focused on our back end sales and our back end, how it's, the systems and how it all kind of happens. And then the third year was when when we finally had the time to do the physical rebrand, which was the renovations and complete like new builds and whatnot. But by doing the work in the first 2 years, we were also able to maximize our revenue stream
Yeah.
because, um, you know, when you build that, it involves you need a lot of cash on hand to be able to do
Yeah.
that. So COVID kind of taught me like you can't rely on one service at all times. Like, when essentially we weren't allowed to do weddings during COVID. So I just realized, okay, we have to pivot. We need to have other offerings available on site.
Mhm.
And so I kind of looked into what are markets that we can tap into that don't require heavy investment on our side that we can do right away. So we kind of really got into the funeral market, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, we do a lot of afterlife celebrations on site. And then we, looked into, okay, people love staying on site as well. So I looked into, sort of getting more accommodation on site and also opening up a new accommodation next door as well to maximize our revenue stream. And then we kind of tapped into the corporate market as well, where we run a lot of corporate events with schools and whatnot. But yeah, so then finally, the third year, the physical rebrand, we actually had the budget to then be able to say, okay, we can safely invest this money back in the business, and we can count on, in a year or 2 years' time, we can make sure that this is going to be profitable at the end of the day. So I think that was like the general formulation of, like, I guess, 3-year plan. And then there was also just a lot of trial and error. Some things worked, something didn't work.
Yeah. I really like your approach. Like, if you didn't tell me what you did before, I would guess you were a product manager. Like, you surveyed the market, you had like a roadmap to get to where you wanted, you had a clear vision, you had iterations. And I really like that instead of a shortcut or just taking on unnecessary risk and getting a massive loan to do everything at once, you phased it in over time when it made sense for your customers and also for your company. So you didn't have insane amounts of debt. And I think the pricing piece, I'm not sure if it's like both of us being from migrant families. Like, I feel like when I first ventured outside of my consulting firm and I started my own freelancing, I was afraid to charge anywhere close to a Big Four firm. Like, I remember the day I emailed my client and I was charging 3/4 of what the Big Four firm was charging me out at. I've had major imposter syndrome of who would ever pay me this per hour. And I sent it, and then they're like, here's the document. Maybe I should ask for 100%. Because they're paying it anyway, but it's probably an insecurity that I had at 24 of, I'm not worth this value, but really I'm the same person going into the office. They're still getting my time. And we had in our business school negotiation class, and it was a book called Influence by Robert Cialdini.
Oh, yes.
Have you read it? Yeah. And this reminds me of, I think it's the jewelry store where they couldn't sell their jewelry when it was on sale. So they doubled the price and then it sold out because people perceive price to value and they shortcut their mental models. And I think it's great that you're offering a bespoke service, something that is unique to market. And so there should be a premium to it because they wouldn't find it anywhere else. So it allows you to create those unique experiences by not having to do the volume to get to break even. So did you read that book in business school, or how did you find the Influence book?
It was, they didn't have it in the curriculum, but my friend in commerce at the time was reading it and he was just like, hey, have you read this book? It's going to really help you with your interview prep. And so I just borrowed the book from him and I read it. And it did, actually. It did make me realize, like, your own value and the way you perceive yourself is going to rub off on someone else, So, you need to be confident in yourself in order for someone else to feel that confidence in you and be able to trust you, mainly. Because at the end of the day, no one is going to do anything with you if they don't trust you. So whether it's their wedding, whether it's, like a really big project in a consultancy firm, they're not going to, if they don't trust you, then it's going to go for you at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. The other book is from Chris Voss. Have you read any of Chris Voss's work? I think Not Splitting the Difference. I think he has a book on it. It's a good book. I'll send it to you. But I think that has changed my life personally and professionally in negotiating with the professional services that I use and also with client engagements. And I think his background is he's a hostage negotiator. And so if you can negotiate with a hostage with someone who's got hostages, you can probably negotiate a good pricing model. Yeah, exactly. So what happened after the full renovation? How does business look now? Is there still anything remaining in your plan? What's in store in your plan?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned before, this year was when I moved back full time. So I came back in April and it was sort of at the start of my renovation process. But since our renovation process has been completed, I think the reaction from just even even the wedding circle, but also just, the clients that come and see it, everyone loves it. I was a little bit afraid initially to, again, change it because I didn't want to lose the original essence of what the venue looked like, but I also knew that it needed a little bit of a spruce up, and I knew it needed something different. So I did do quite a few searches for different kinds of architects and whatnot. And a lot of them kind of started from that point of view of like, you should just tear everything down and start again. And I was like, hey man, I got a budget, so I don't know if your grand idea is going to work with me.
Yeah.
But I also just didn't like that concept. I was like, what
No.
do you mean? This venue is beautiful. You should be able to like, don't you want to work with something to make it look better?
Right.
And then eventually I found the right architect, and she was amazing. I think our visions really aligned, and she really understood the amount of history because the venue's actually been around for 20 years now. So, and the original owner actually built a lot of it by hand, by himself.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, we've got this like chapel that is like one of the most unique chapels in the Gold Coast, I reckon. But I kind of told her, I was like, I want to go with the motif of this kind of stone wall, and then and let's create something a little bit more different. But I want it to follow the beauty of what was created before. And so yeah, we worked really well together. There were a lot of drafts, a lot of iterations of things, a lot of changes, and eventually, yeah, we land on what it is now. And yeah, it's been so good for us because I think it further just proves like, you know, the value and the pricing as to where we're sitting.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, people ever since this, people want to stay here even more. Even after their wedding, like they sometimes just want to come stay for their anniversary.
So sweet.
Yeah. Or they'll bring their kids back on site, you know, 2 years later and show their kids where they got married. And I think and then they can see the difference as well. Like, oh, you know, mommy and daddy had it here, but it looked different and now it looks like this. So we really love that, you know, it draws people back in to come have a look as well. But yeah, so since the renovations and since I've been able to move back, my big focus now currently is the next phase that we have. I've been working actually last 2 years on phase 2 of our big developments on site. Recently, I've been working a lot on our digital marketing. Once again, I've been putting out a lot more. I've been focusing a lot more on like Meta ads and like Google ads and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, it's kind of been focusing on that section.
What lessons have you learned in digital marketing? I don't have a marketing background and I often struggle with it. So for other small business owners, what have you learned that helps be effective in running campaigns? I end up burning through my budget and then not having conversions. So what have you learned putting your ads out?
Yeah, trust me, I have done the same thing where you just, you know, you set a budget and then within like 3 weeks, it's gone.
And you don't have sales or like it didn't convert many sales. You have a lot of clicks. Yeah.
Yeah, you're just like, what was the point of that?
Yeah.
Does this even work? Is this system like bugged or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it took me a while to understand what to focus on. I think initially I had a huge focus on like the SEO side of things, but I kind of realized as well, like SEO is a bit more long-term gain,
Yes.
a long-term game.
Mm-hmm. It's like building a brand. It takes over time.
Yeah. But I also, the biggest thing was like, I think a lot of businesses fall into the trap of like when they first start off or if the product has just started, they haven't generated enough organic interest and then they go straight into, boom, let's just launch these ads. Sometimes for e-commerce products that can work, but I think for a service venue like Coolibah, it just doesn't work that way. So for us, I really need to focus on the back end first of like making sure we have all the like, you know, Google reviews, we have consistent reviews, we have really good Instagram, we have like constant reels, you know, every single LinkedIn, everything is always updating. We had to like really work on that and making sure our services are top notch and, you know, we have the right to say, hey, you know, this Coolibah is going to give you a premium experience. So it was making sure the back end was looking real good first. And then recently when I started running ads, initially I started myself and I was like, let me just give this a try. I'll run a couple campaigns. But I realized I think I'm not the best at formulating campaigns personally.
Okay.
So I brought in a digital marketing, like the head of digital marketing that I'm currently working with now. And he purely does digital marketing for the wedding industry, actually. So he's run a lot of campaigns already. He knows what works. We kind of worked on it together as well. And then he kind of guided me as to like how we're going to do this, what is the starting cost going to be. And then ever since I brought him on, my ads have actually been converting. And
Great.
and it's only been like 4 weeks. And so, yeah, he's, I think sometimes I got to outsource, and like I'm learning a lot from him personally now. I could run my own campaigns, I could build them myself, but it's not going to hit and it's not the right script.
And he's far ahead of you in experience. And so why not leverage someone who spent the time and collaborate rather than start at the beginning and try to catch up? I feel the same way about accounting. Like there's times where I'm like, I'll just do it myself. This is not the best use of my time. I did not study accounting. This is low value work. I'm saving tens of dollars while I'm losing out on much larger deals by not focusing on what I'm good at. And it's tough. I think it comes back to like my migrant upbringing of like cutting costs rather than like growing, valuing my own time.
Yeah. But I do think there is it is good to do everything in the beginning by yourself first, because then you understand the process. So when you do bring in someone on board, you also know what you're telling me real, or is you just trying to tell me. So and a lot of times, like with marketing, at least I've had a lot of firms trying to upsell me, and it was honestly just complete. It was wrong.
Yeah, I think it's the same. I think it's the same where you know what to look out for. You can't execute it better, but you can at least cipher or filter out the noise of people who also don't know what they're doing. I think I did the same with property management, where for the first 2 years, my tenant didn't have a bank account, which should have been a red flag. I would have to drive there every month to collect a check or cash because he didn't have a bank account. And then I got him to get a bank account, and then his checks would bounce. This was a long time ago. But I knew everything involved, like signing a lease. I knew about disputes. I knew about all my bookkeeping and property management, getting repair people, so that when I was screening someone to take over all this responsibility that I didn't want anymore, I could ask them the relevant questions of how are you going to do it? And then weigh whether or not it would be better than how I would do it. So I think it's similar to the marketing piece. You've gone through it. Well, how do I not blow my budget and have zero conversions? What are you going to do differently than what I've already tried versus here's a chunk of money, put out some ads for me. And then you don't really know what the metrics are. You can't really sanity check how good they are.
Yeah. And sometimes what they bring to the table as well, it's just, when my head of marketing first brought me his script for an ad that he wrote, it's like, mate, I don't really, you want me to, you're going to get us to say this. And, he was really upfront about, look, I'm going to get you guys in front of the camera. You guys need to be front and center. I want you to I want this venue to have a face, and I want all your faces on this. I want your whole face. My God, like this is not what I thought. Like I was going for the aesthetic, cable, like aesthetic aerial shots of like, not what I expected, but not weirdly enough, he knew it was going to work.
Did it work?
Yeah, it did work. I told him I have massive trust issues with most. I've been burned. So he's the right guy for us, I think.
Yeah. He has the credentials or the experience to back up what he's talking about.
He was also recommended to me by a fellow friend in the industry as well. So I think there was a little bit, more trust in that sense.
Yeah. I think that's often a really good way to find people is through trusted networks. And one of my good friends now lives in Upper Coomera. Like we talk about, you're the average of the closest people that you spend most time with. They affect your values and your beliefs over time.
Yeah, definitely.
We're coming up to the end of our show. Before we wrap up, I have a few more questions. You're deep in the wedding venue space and you're running a successful company. What are the remaining problems to be solved in the wedding venue space that aspiring entrepreneurs can come and provide a complimentary service to help out?
That's a really good question. Some problems in the wedding space. I think with a lot of, at least because I'm coming from a wedding venue perspective, so I think a lot of wedding venues, especially the bigger ones, we generally have a capacity minimum. So, usually we say like 40 people is the least amount of guests that we can have on site in order to hold your wedding. But I think with the market changing now and, with different, also interest rates rising, I think there's a huge market in elopements and intimate weddings. So I think if newer entrepreneurs were looking into a space where they want to be able to tap that market, I think there's a lot of potential in that right now, where you can be the person organizing, I guess, weddings for less than 40 people. But, a lot of the times they still want that premium experience. And then the network with different venues, being able to cater to lower numbers has always been an issue, and would be good if more businesses came in to help solve that problem. But I'd say in the wedding industry, in the Gold Coast community, now it's happening a lot more. But before, I think the businesses were less connected. Whereas now, I feel like the more we get to know, more venue owners, more photographers, more wedding vendors, the more we're going to be able to come up with better ideas, to be honest, and have more of a community that's together. And then that way, because usually our problem's always the same. How are we going to convert more? How are we going to get more clients here? Or what are we going to do next year? That would be really good if we could have something more of a community gathering, even a platform for that. That would be amazing.
Oh, nice. Excellent. And our final question, what advice do you have broadly for entrepreneurs who are thinking about starting a new business from all the lessons that you have learned along the way?
Depending on what stage you are, if you're starting out and you don't have a team around you just yet, I think, again, there's a value in the industry, even though if it doesn't bring you monetary gain straight away, getting to know the industry and getting to know other people who are doing similar things to you is really going to help you at the end of the day. And, you have someone you can rely on and bounce ideas off, who will tell you, hey, this is good or bad. But invest wisely, come up with a plan. If you do need to change a plan, it doesn't matter, just pivot. But definitely invest wisely, understand what your budget is, don't blow it straight away. Think about long-term gain, short-term gain, and then evaluate the cost benefits of that first before doing anything. And finally, I think it's just be passionate about what you do, because I think it'll really pull you through the hard times, even if you're struggling a little bit in the beginning. If you're passionate and you truly believe in the product or the service that you're offering, I think that passion will really push you through, because you sometimes do need a little bit of a blinders on moment where, no one can crush your idea and you're just going to go full ahead with it. So I think a little bit of that energy is really good sometimes.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your time, Alina. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Ray.